Lascion Corla, Deputy Connolly, there are 10 minutes on the slot. You have 5.
5 and 5, Garmag. Then I welcome the opportunity to take part in this, and indeed I note that the report itself highlights a paucity of real debate on defence and security matters in the country, and hope it's a more informed and grounded debate on these matters arising from it. And indeed I echo that, but I also take it further and say the complete absence of a debate in relation to grounding any talk about defence and increasing our military spending within the values that we treasure and the articles of the Constitution that commit us to a peace country, a country that works for peace, not a country that puts its hand up to be the best in the warmongering class. I would prefer our debate to be taking place in how we become the best person in the peacekeeping class as a neutral country. So the report, and the senior minister is gone, I understand he can't be here all of the time, but he did pose the question, have you read the report? And I can certainly tell you I have read the report. It's here, and I have read the whole lot of it, approximately 250 pages. And amongst many things, and I've only 4 minutes, I won't be going into them, but there are 11 chapters. And the chapter 8 is mentioned 4 times, different sections, such as the value of people as the Defence Force's key strategic resource. And that's the one thing we haven't done, any government at any stage treasured our people in the Defence Forces as the key strategic resource. And as been mentioned already, terms and conditions weren't under their terms of reference. So leave that for the moment. In relation to what the report highlighted, amongst many things it highlighted a serious sense of crisis, a serious sense of not being heard by those on the ground, a serious desire for change at all levels, a disconnect between stated policy, resources and capabilities. As I've said, a sense of not being heard, an inadequacy of grievance processes, fears of reprisal, disempowerment, evident across the Defence Forces of a culture that was masculine and a limited appreciation of diversity. And actually in the whole report, the Women of Honour get a very small reference on page 100, which is interesting itself. I pay tribute to the amount of work done and the speed of it within the space of time. And actually the way it's laid out is laid out very clearly, and to the 16 members who worked. But let me just, I come from a city, Galway, where there was a little celebration last week, as you well know, Minister, in relation to the handing over of the barracks 100 years ago, Barrack Dún Imwalisa. And just the following year, we joined up the League of Nations. That was a doomed organisation, but they had very, very good ambitions: disarmament, to prevent war, settle disputes by peaceful means, and improve global welfare. In today's terms, we would talk about getting rid of inequality as the major ways of stopping war. And so that was 100 years ago, approximately, and that was doomed. We moved forward then and we joined the UN, I think, in 1955. And from 58, as has been said, we have an unbroken record of services to the UN peacekeeping forces. We have served, as Claire Daly put it in her submission, we have served in more than 20 peacekeeping operations, a lot more than that, but we've been somewhere every single day of the year since 1958. And there, actually, if you look at the submissions, I want to highlight the submission from the Quakers, from Claire Daly, from the organisation called World Beyond War, and from PANA. And they're worth looking at because they lift the debate out of the necessities of definitely tackling the retention crisis in the army, but also what is the sole purposes of our army, what is it for, and how do we achieve that? And so before I give any endorsement to the billions that's been mentioned, I would like a frank and honest discussion about the role of our defence forces. And again, if we look at the United Nations, and it's Dennis Halliday, and he's been quoted in one of the submissions, our reputation for integrity and decency and doing a good job is second to none. Dr. Michael Ryan from the World Health Organization, in his address at the Trócaire Oscar Romero Award ceremony, when he warned, and of course we quoted this man ad nauseum when it suited us in relation to COVID, when he warned against the enormous waste of global defence investment, urging nations to radically change the mindset on the imagined threats from other nations. And of course the real threat is climate change. It barely gets a mention in the report, barely a mention, and only in terms of the consequences of environmental degradation. On page 5, the report tells us that the attack is very low. The risk of attack is very low. And yet we're talking about putting billions into an army so we can be the best boys and the girls and put our hands up and say we're top of the warmongering class as opposed to the peacekeeping class. I'll give over to my colleague.